But I didn't study with
Yeah, fine.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. It's such a full house. This is wonderful. My name is Madeline. I'm the events coordinator here at Malaprops. Just want to welcome you all here, give you some housekeeping notes, and then introduce our special guest tonight. It looks like I think we're pretty full. We can grab some more seats after we get started, but it looks like we've filled in very nicely.
Somebody wants to.
Okay, there's an open chair here, there's an open chair here, and then there's one back there. Anyone's welcome to grab those chairs now or during the event. You're welcome to have a seat. It's very available for you. All right, I will get started with our housekeeping. Just a friendly reminder to silence your cell phones if you haven't already, authors included. That way we don't have any disruptions tonight. We've got 2 restrooms down the hallway. They take a code to get in, but we've made it easy for you when we put the code right on the door, 4 digits and a pound, so you don't have to go asking for that. We have all of Tommy's books, and we have quite a few of Abigail's books straight back in behind the checkout counter, so you don't have to go looking for those either. We've got some previous works. We've got obviously the new book, The Marriage Bed, all available behind the counter, and I'm sure Tommy would be happy to sign your book after the event, which will be right here. We'll kind of line up right here after the event. We also have a live stream joining us tonight. So hello, everyone tuning in online. Thank you so much for joining us. I will send you some information in the chat on how you can send a question in for Tommy, and I can ask that on your behalf. And I'll also send a link on how you can purchase the book through our website. And lastly, I'll say, if it's your first time here at an event and you would like to follow along, we've got some brochures on our counter. We've got calendars around the store. They have a QR code on how to sign up to follow us through our newsletter. We've got a monthly newsletter and a weekly events newsletter. And we would love for you to keep in touch and follow along on the events we've got in store and out in the community. We would love to keep having this many people come out to our free events. It's a huge help. And then I will also mention our store closes at 7, but we're gonna hang around a little bit later. We've got some refreshments back here, courtesy of Tommy and his family, and would love for y'all to stick around and have a piece of cake and a beverage afterwards.
Please. Or I'll have to eat it.
Well, we are very excited to host Tommy Hayes tonight for the launch of his new book, The Marriage Bed, in conversation with Abigail DeWitt. Tommy Hayes is an acclaimed Southern writer whose fiction grows out of his emotional connections to places he's lived and known: Greenville, South Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia. In addition to The Marriage Bed, he is the author of The Pleasure Was Mine, In the Family Way, Sam's Crossing, and What I Came to Tell You. He's been inducted into the South Carolina Academy of Authors, as well as the Order of the Longleaf Pine, the highest civilian honor bestowed by the Governor of North Carolina. He's retired executive director of the Great Smoky Writing Program at UNC Asheville. Abigail DeWitt is the author of 3 novels, Lily, Dogs, and News of Our Loved Ones. Her short fiction and essays have appeared in Narrative, the LA Review of Books, 5 Points, Witness, the Alaska Quarterly Review, the Carolina Quarterly, and elsewhere. She's been cited in Best American Short Stories and has received grants and fellowships from the North Carolina Arts Council, the Tyrone Guthrie Center, and the McColl Center for the Arts, and the Michener Society. All right, please join me in welcoming Tommy Hayes and Abigail DeWitt.
Thanks, Madeline.
it's on. Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Madeline. Thank you, Malaprops, for supporting writers and readers since 1982, and for being, as Ann Patchett put it, the heart and soul of Asheville. I thank all of you for being here, and thank you, Tommy, for writing The Marriage Bed. I'm going to skip over part of my introduction because Madeline covered most of it, but what I do want to add to it is just, and I think a lot of you here know this, that Tommy has been has played a huge role in creating and fostering Western North Carolina's literary community. In addition to his stunning novels and recognitions, he's really been a champion of other writers, both through the Great Smokies program and Wild Acres and beyond. So thank you for that, Tommy. And I am so happy and honored to be here tonight celebrating the launch of The Marriage Bed, Tommy's latest, most beautiful book. I love Ron Rash's description of it. He calls the novel riveting, unrelenting, and wise, which is really a perfect description of Tommy's entire body of work. One of the things I'm most grateful to Tommy for is that his novels make me feel better about humanity, which is a pretty remarkable feat these days. Tommy doesn't shy away from hard subjects, and some of his characters do terrible things, but more than any other writer I know, Tommy gives his characters room to forgive each other. His love for them, even when they're at their worst, is contagious. Asa Flowers, the protagonist of The Marriage Bed, reminds me a tiny bit of Ebenezer Scrooge. He's much more appealing from the start, but like Scrooge, he suffers a great blow, turns bitter, and hurts people around him. There are other great point of view characters in this novel. The Marriage Bed is about more than one man. It's about a whole family and community. And at its heart, it seems to me, the novel asks, how as individuals and communities do we recover from loss and repair the damage we've caused? Tommy's exploration of that question, the expansiveness and compassion of his vision, is a gift to all his readers. Please join me in welcoming Tommy Hayes.
Thank you, Abigail, for that beautiful introduction. Abigail had everything to do with this book. She's been reading it for 13 years. Yeah, you have. She's been reading it for 13 years and giving me feedback all along. And I am so indebted to all the work you put into giving me feedback. Thank you. And I want to thank Madeline for, where is Madeline? Oh, there she is. Apparently Malaprops has had a whole bunch of writers bringing their books here in the past month, and it's been a lot, and it's a hard job. And so I just want to thank Madeline for doing that. And who else do I need to thank? Well, I need to thank Malaprops in general. Malaprops, I have been launching, it's not like I've had a lot of books, but I have been launching my books since 1992 here when Sam's Crossing first came out. That's my first book. So Malaprops has been so important to me in a lot of different ways too. And it has for so many writers in this town. And I want to thank Blair, my publisher, and they have been absolutely wonderful, attentive, thoughtful, and available. And I have had such a wonderful experience with them in a way that maybe I didn't have quite so much with some of the larger houses that I had my books with before. So I guess what I want to do now is read from the marriage bed for a little bit. And then maybe we can talk a little bit, or we can also take questions. So here goes. I haven't really read from this in a long time. Well, at all, hardly. If Asa Flowers had known the mood he would find his wife in, he would have stayed at school and graded papers. Instead, he was on his way home, listening to the weather forecast on the radio. A system bringing rain and occasional wind gusts was moving up through Georgia and South Carolina and would arrive in the western North Carolina mountains by nightfall. He found the front door ajar, not a good sign. When Betsy was stressed, she left doors unclosed, tops unscrewed, and pretty much everything she came in contact with undone. Over the years, he had learned it was a barometer of her mental state. He spent half his married life closing, locking, and putting things back. Inside, he'd set down his satchel that bulged with papers on Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye and hung his jacket in the foyer when he heard Betsy out in the kitchen talking on the phone. How will I tell him? Probably on the phone with Alice Stromquist, her longtime friend and fellow high school English teacher. When he walked into the kitchen, his wife wasn't on the phone. She sat on the table reading what looked like a letter. Luna, their 70-pound gray muzzled chow mix, greeted him and then returned to her bed in the corner of the kitchen. What's that? Had his wife received one of the dreaded termination letters? He thought Betsy safe from cuts, having taught in the system for more than 20 years. Looking distraught, she set the letter down. Damn. What would they do without her salary and with 2 kids in college? He slid the letter over and began to read it. A form letter from AARP inviting Betsy to join. That's what this is about? He slid it back across the table. They send it to everybody who turns 50. It's not the draft. You don't have to join. His wife wasn't a hysterical person, but she'd gotten sensitive about her age. She was a striking woman with high cheekbones and china blue eyes. People compared her to Joni Mitchell. Her long hair had streaked gray over the years, and the crow's feet around her eyes deepened. But if you asked him, this made her beauty more substantial. Although he would have written cliché in the margin if it appeared in one of his students' papers, he thought of her as a fine wine that had come into its own. Lately, she'd been working out and taking more pains with her makeup. The other night, she lingered in front of her dresser mirror, tracing her finger around her mouth. Think I should have a little work done? She climbed into bed beside him. Are you kidding? He said, surprised his wife would even consider such a thing. You're beautiful the way you are. You're sweet. She smiled and kissed him. Besides, I doubt if our insurance company covers it, he said. She frowned and turned off the lamp. Now, as he stood in the kitchen watching his wife, he knew he'd wandered into treacherous territory. He could remind her that he joined the AARP 8 years ago. He could remind her that it was a sound organization. They did all kinds of important lobbying. He'd gotten $60 off their hotel room last month when they had gone to visit their daughter, Sarah, who was a junior at Chapel Hill. But one look at his wife's face, and he knew he shouldn't say anything. How many times over the years had she said to him, all I need is for you to listen. He fished a beer out of the refrigerator and sat down across from her. She would talk at some length, consider all the angles, plumb all the depths. He'd sit tight, nod, and resist rushing in with answers. He noticed the dusty wine bottle on the kitchen counter. It usually sat on top of the kitchen cabinets on a high shelf over the stove. The empty bottle, its dingy label, mottled and half worn away, was an artifact from his proposal 25 years ago. Asa always forgot about the bottle until Thanksgiving or Christmas when he'd climb up on a stool to fetch it down with the big serving platter, the bottle sitting beside it. But now, Asa couldn't help studying the bottle, What was it doing down from its perch? He remembered all the papers waiting for him. Then he wondered if Betsy had had a chance to read his new poems yet. He thought they were some of his strongest. What was she planning for supper? Hadn't she said something about salmon? He hoped she would make it the way she prepared it lately, searing it on high heat in the frying pan. But he noted there were no signs of her making dinner. She was usually well into cooking by the time she got home from work. Betsy turned to him, looked him in the eye, and smiled a smile whose tenderness caught him off guard. What day was it? Oh, only Tuesday, but who was he to protest weekday sex? With an expression somewhere between regret and relief, she said, I haven't been feeling like myself. Maybe the dosage is off, he said. For some time, she'd applied a drop of estrogen cream to the inside of her wrist. Her doctor was forever adjusting the dosage. It's not menopause. She rubbed her hand along the table edge. It's us. Us? She looked up. I found myself attracted to someone else. He looked at her for a minute. Found yourself. He drank a long swig of beer. Outside, the wind scratched a quince branch against the kitchen door, an animal clawing to get in. Someone else, he said finally. In third grade, his friend Bill Parks had walked up to him and without warning and without any reason Asa ever learned, socked him so hard in the stomach he couldn't breathe. Listen, Asa said, pressing down on the kitchen table as if it was about to fly away. Listen, he repeated, but he couldn't think of anything to say. All couples go through this empty nest syndrome. Yes, those were the words people used, weren't they? Asa, I don't think it's all that unusual being attracted to someone else, he went on. When it comes down to it, everybody's attracted to everybody, right? Hearing himself, he knew he'd made absolutely no sense. I'm talking deep down in my bones attracted, she said. Asa noticed his wife's ears. How had he never really seen them before? Surely he must have. They were so delicate looking, shiny crescents of shell, canted just enough so that they peeked out from beneath her long hair. The more he looked at them, the stranger they appeared, fragile yet self-contained pieces of his wife. She took another swig of the beer and tried to refocus. Asa took another swig of beer. He felt shaken, the tectonic plates of their marriage shifting. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw something dart across the kitchen floor, and Luna went over and sniffed around the oven. What does this mean, Betsy? How strange to speak her name as if she were a student he'd called on in class. A gust rattled the windows. Who is he? Asa tried to keep his voice down. Betsy reached across the table as if to hold his hand, but instead grabbed his beer, took a sip, and slid the bottle back. It's not a he. All right. So now I'm going to skip like about 40 pages. And in it, I skip that they go on and continue to have a fight, and they get really angry, and especially he's upset. So he goes out and he has decided he would spend the night in their little house out back. He's never done that in 25 years of marriage. It sort of shows you what this feels like for him. And so then also a storm passes through, but it's not Helene. That's a part of it too. So anyway, and this is the next morning, and it's from the point of view of the woman who's their paper carrier. Claire turned down Montfort Avenue, her favorite street in Asheville, with its renovated Victorian homes surrounded by manicured gardens and walking paths. The morning air was so clear that the storm's aftermath appeared in hyperfocus. The streets were littered with leaves and branches, yards were covered with large limbs, and she even passed a few toppled trees. She tossed a paper towards the Flowers' house, but it landed beneath a bush. Being so late, she would have left it, but Dr. Flowers sometimes complained. Like his letters to the editor, he could be on the critical side. Henry, who did a lot of tree work for the Flowers, and said that Dr. Flowers wasn't a bad guy once you got to know him. Still, it didn't hurt that Mrs. Flowers sent Claire a card with a check for $100 each Christmas. Claire had pulled over, picked up the paper, and moved it to the Flowers walk when she looked up at their house, a two-story arts and crafts house she'd always admired. What she saw took her breath away. A tree had snapped halfway down its trunk and crushed a corner of the second floor. How dark and eerily quiet the house seemed. She looked around. Had no one on the street noticed? The way the house was tucked back in the trees, she wouldn't have noticed either if she hadn't been standing in the front yard. She hurried up on the front porch and rang the doorbell, and when no one came, knocked, then knocked louder. Is anyone there? The front door was locked, but she heard a dog inside whining. That would be the sweet old chow Mrs. Flowers was often walking when Claire delivered the paper. Maybe the Flowers were still asleep, but how could they be with that tree on their house? Claire went around to the back of the house, pausing at the gate with the worn sign that said, "Beware of dog." She knew Luna was nothing to beware of. Besides, the dog was in the house, not the yard. She went through the gate, careful to pull it close behind her. She knocked on the back door, calling out. She tried the door, and it wasn't locked. "Hello," she called as she stepped into the kitchen door. There was no answer, but a black blur shot past her into the yard. Claire found Luna in the back, peeing. She waited till the dog was done and walked her into the house. As soon as they were inside, Luna started whining again. "Hello?" Claire called. "Dr. Flowers? Mrs. Flowers?" Claire found the light switch, and to her surprise, the light came on. She looked around. Everything appeared to be in order. No sign of damage down here. She walked through the first floor, turning on lights and calling out. Maybe the Flowers were on vacation and they left the dog for a neighbor to watch. But Mrs. Flowers always called to have their papers held whenever they went out of town. As she moved through the house, Claire remembered an article she read a few months ago about a father who shot and killed his daughter, mistaking her for an intruder. The girl had come home from college a week early, wanting to surprise her parents, and had been tiptoeing through the dark house in the early morning hours. Standing at the bottom of the stairs, Claire felt a breeze come from above. She heard a voice upstairs. What if someone was in the shower and found her walking around in her house? "Hello?" she called up the stairs. She paused on the landing, looking up. From where she stood, she saw twigs and branches scattered in the hallway. Slowly, she walked up the stairs, but Luna remained at the bottom. When Claire reached the top, there was no sign of damage in the hallway, but when she looked into the first bedroom, she saw nothing but tree and blue sky. The tree had fallen halfway into the room, bringing with it limbs and the trunk itself, which ran across the length of the bedroom. It smelled of evergreen, hemlock, she said to herself, fingering a branch of needles with cottony wide patches underneath. How out of place that great trunk looked. She patted it as if it were a whale that had somehow beached itself on the second floor of the Flowers' house. She pulled away a few limbs, ducked under the trunk, and went deeper into the bedroom. Much of the room was intact, down to framed pictures that sat on the dresser. The voice was coming from the radio on the dresser, an announcer reading the news. She cleared away another limb, and when she did, she gasped. In her nightgown, Mrs. Flowers stared up at her with lifeless eyes, her body pinned to her bed by a branch that had run her through where her heart might be. So. Thank you. So now, guess we'll have questions, or what are we going to talk a little bit? We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit now. And then,
Is it on?
I don't know.
Is it on?
Yeah.
We're gonna talk a little bit, and then, you're gonna take questions.
Okay.
That's the plan.
That sounds great.
I have so many different things I want to address with you.
Mhm.
That's a perfect excerpt to read, by the way.
Thank you.
That was.
Thanks.
Well, this is my last question. I'm gonna ask you my last question first, which is, where the idea of the book came from.
Oh. Well, I guess the idea of the book came from, there was, our neighbors. Our neighbors have had a sickly hemlock next to our house. And I loved that tree. I loved it and wanted to keep it. But they were smart enough to have it cut down. And after Helene, but before that, I thought about that limb. It's actually over my daughter's bedroom. And I thought, shit, I'm worried about that. And so I thought, what? And that was where it came from. I mean, straight from other things too. But
From a dying tree to
from a dying
an
tree.
impaled life.
Yeah.
So you've talked about family as being a major subject that inspires you, and you write about family in all of your books so beautifully. It always makes me feel like that you must have grown up in a great family, that a lot of writers don't describe families so lovingly. But what's interesting to me is that, and this is what I was talking about in terms of the room for forgiveness, it's not as if the characters, the family members are always well behaved. But they are really, they hold together. They really hold together. And I think it's really a remarkable thing the way you do that. And you really put the lie to Tolstoy's all happy families are alike. Each of your happy families is really different. And has its own really special problems. So I'm just wondering if you can talk about family as your theme and forgiveness in your books.
Sure.
Looking at the whole picture.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why I write about family, except that it's what it just comes to me. That's what I think about a lot. And I did have a good family, but it wasn't any better than anybody else's family. I mean, I don't think. But for me, it's always been something that's so complicated. And so there's so many ways to look at it. And that it has always sort of captured my interest. So that's probably part of why I write out a family. And because I don't know. No, I mean, I feel pretty strongly about my family, and have always felt that way. It's not really loyalty or anything. It's just like, and my father was sort of a writer, but he's very compassionate, sweet man. And my mother was very sweet. She was tougher than my dad, but she was very, and she was very smart, and she was a writer. And so they both were, but they both both encouraged, my brother's an architect, and encouraged us to pursue our dreams, always. And my father would do that, and he'd, you know, and he was like no father I'd ever heard of in that way. And my mother really was that way too in a lot of ways, but my father was very unconventional. He was sort of like, I say he was a Waffle House mystic in one of my other books, and he was. So I think that probably has a lot to do with it. Yeah.
Well, I love the fact that you said that it is, a part of it is it's endlessly fascinating to you because of its complexity, you know, and that's what makes your families so interesting, is that they are complicated families, and you really, it feels like you love that complexity in the way that you depict them. And the other thing is, besides a really strong sense of family in your books, is such a strong sense of community. I always feel like your characters are really held up by their community in one way or another, which is, I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but that is also a really striking feature of your books.
And that's another thing that just happens as I'm writing it. But once I look back, I'm very aware that that is so. And I do feel it in Asheville for sure. But I felt that in Atlanta, in our little 5 Points neighborhood, and I felt it in a lot of places. But yeah, so that the community. I have a somebody's asked me to do like a little questionnaire thing. It's not a little questionnaire, but to do like a blog that he does, and it's a really great blog. But anyway, he asks the questions, what is your favorite children's book? And Connie and I talked, and I came away from that, it's Winnie the Pooh. And Winnie the Pooh has a very strong sense of community, you know, they're all in it together, you know. So maybe there's just something that attracts me about all that.
Love that. I really love that. Can you talk about your writing process?
Yeah, it takes me a long time. I started this book a long time ago. 13 years ago, I started this book. I write a draft over about a year or longer, and then it's always terrible. And then I get feedback from people and trusted writers, and then I go back to work again with their suggestions, and I work another year, and then it's not as terrible, but it's not good. And that's how I work, you know, until it gets good enough. And that's how I do it. Yeah.
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 So is there a question that you always wish you would get asked at?
No.
Well,
And the reason is because on this same blog questionnaire, there's that question.
oh.
And I don't know. What question should I have?
I don't know. But before we open it up to the group,
Yes.
I want to encourage the group. I'm going to tell a little anecdote
Okay,
that has nothing
you
to
do
do
that.
with you
Okay.
or your book or
All right,
anything, but
great.
it's about readings. When my grandson was 4, he went to a reading of a children's book author, and I don't know what the book was, but let's say it was The Very Hungry Caterpillar or Winnie the Pooh. And the author said, do you have any questions at the end? And my little grandson, who was 4, raised his hand and said, what can you tell me about volcanoes? So the guy tried to answer, and finally he said, and why do you ask? And Asa is the name of that grandson.
Oh, wow.
Said, that's just something I'm wondering about. So, when you all, we're gonna open it up, but don't hesitate to ask anything.
Ask anything.
Be really happy to answer.
Anything. Anything.
Oh, and I'll repeat your questions so that the people online can hear it. I forgot I was supposed to do that.
That's cool.
Yes.
In the first part of your reading, you mentioned AARP.
Yeah,
Is that a product placement? Move on your
I get a
part?
big kickback for that. Yeah,
That was about whether or not Tommy was getting a kickback from AARP mentioning them.
sorry.
Yeah,
Okay, when I was little, I was so freaked out by Charlotte's Web. You know, it just scared the heck out of me, and I never read and wasn't read to Winnie the Pooh until I had my own children, and now it's my favorite.
Wow.
And I was wondering if you read it or had it read to you when you were a kid. When did you become used to it?
What-
Yeah, what was that?
For them.
I was in the.
Oh, oh, you can tell
No,
it.
no.
You do.
I don't remember what she said.
What did someone read Winnie the Pooh to Tommy and, right? Did I-
Yes, yeah, she asked if she said she came to Winnie the Pooh late. And she wondered if somebody read it to me, and my father did. My father was a great reader. And he could do all the voices, and I just loved listening to him read. So my dad definitely read Winnie the Pooh. Thomas.
You mentioned the Terry Roberts, that like the story just kept coming back. Like you put it aside for a bit to work on something else.
Yeah.
But the characters kept coming back.
Right. Yes. Well, I started the novel, like I said, about 13 years ago, and I wrote on it for a good while. And also during that time, and my agent at the time didn't really, I mean, she liked it, and she liked a lot of things about it, but she wanted me to do a lot of work. But then, you know, we were coming out of, I was coming out of, I guess, or maybe in the middle of having children. I don't know. And so I became in love with children's books. I mean, like YA or, you know, and so then I started working on like a YA book. And I did finish that. But when I was done with that, I tried again. I went back to the adult novel. And like I said, each time I went back and time passed, and that was good. It helped me think about the feedback I'd gotten before and how I might could use that. So in that way, having that kind of time pass was very helpful, but it's sort of painful. I mean, at the same time. I can't, I can't see your face.
Back here.
Oh, hey,
Congrats, Tommy.
thank you.
I'm curious how you chose, or how you decided that Asa should be a poet, and whether you ever wrote any poems in his voice, whether they're in the book or not.
Uh-huh. I gotta repeat that question. And the question is, what was the question?
The question is, how did you decide that Asa would be a poet?
Yeah.
And did you write any poems in his voice that are in the book?
Yes,
Or not.
or not. Well, I wanted to be a poet. I wanted him to be a poet. I said, me, because I wasn't a poet. And it got me a little out of myself. I mean, I taught at UNCA, I taught in creative writing some, but I wasn't really a professor, and I also was definitely not a poet. And so I did, there's a poem in the book towards the end that I tried to write, but it was horrible. And so I happened to have a very close friend named Eric Nelson, who's here, who I said, can you help me with this? And he says, sure. And he just wrote a new poem, and it's so bad. So, and also it was interesting to me because I felt like I was, yeah, it was just a poet's point of view just seemed perfect for him for some reason. Fun.
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
You are clearly a fan of Walt Whitman,
Mm,
and I appreciate it. I've only read the first chapter, but I
Uh-huh.
appreciate it. But I also wondered what these are the days that must happen to you,
mm.
which is the quote you have in
Mhm.
the book. What does that mean for you, and why did you choose that to put that way?
I have no idea. She just asked. What did she just ask? I'm so
What
bad.
the Walt Whitman quote in the beginning
Oh,
means to
right.
you.
What did the Walt Whitman quote again mean? Because I think then the quote is sort of what, I mean, he suddenly is in a bad place. Asa is in a very bad place. And he has to face up to these are the days that happen to you. And what are you gonna do about it? Yeah, Andrew.
So I was wondering about that switching between writing YA and adult fiction.
Yeah.
A little bit about how you prepared yourself mentally.
Okay.
to Shift there, there's maybe some different guardrails with YA.
Okay. He's asking how I switched from writing an adult novel to YA. I'm not sure I did switch is my thing. Like I sort of thought I was writing a novel for everybody. And it felt like, but in a way that would be accessible to kids. And so, but I did read a lot of YA books during that time, a lot. And that really helped. But I also, to this day, I'm not sure what that means. You know, what is the difference? Like a really good YA novel is a good novel for everybody, you know, I think. So that was tricky for me. Yeah. Hey.
Hey, my question is when you started, because your dialogue is so natural and
Mhm.
it's just is very believable,
Mhm.
when you started writing the book, did you notice the dialogue change? How did you advance, or not advance, but how did you write? What was your process in writing the dialogue? And
Mm.
did you find that the longer you wrote it, basically the dialogue just sort of happened without?
The question is about dialogue and how I write it. And for me, dialogue is one thing that really takes me into the character. Like I can describe them all day long, but once I get them talking, they reveal things to me that I didn't know. And so I really enjoy that. And so that's why, and so the longer I spend with a character, the easier it is, dialogue. But it's also, I try to get myself to start and write dialogue pretty soon with that character so I can get to know him. Oh, yeah. Hey, Brian.
So kind of a gross generalization perhaps, but you know, there's a school of thought in writing, plot, outline. At the beginning of the book, you may basically more or less know the end. And then there's another school of thought, follow the character. Follow their fears, their likes, their dislikes, their passions. I was wondering between the two, maybe there's a third, which way you come down the most when you write.
Brian asked how I write. I mean, like, and I don't know. But like he's asking that, you know, do I sort of plan it out or do I just get to know my characters? I don't know if that's what you're asking or not. Is that what you're asking? And I mostly I just write and get to know my characters and spend time with them. And this is probably a stupid way to write and why it's taken me 13 fucking years to do it. But that's what I do. Okay.
Curious about those 13 years, and I'm wondering when you set the work aside and then you return to it, how influenced are you by the changes in the world? Environmental, social, economic,
Political.
yeah, and also your own maturity, giving you a different perspective maybe on your characters.
Yeah, she's asking that time passing and how that affects your sense of the novel, you know, how that affects it. And that's a really good question. And it comes up, especially politically these days. And so, you know, when I was working on it earlier, things weren't so bad, you know, but now things suck. And so that was something for me to think about. But I just was true to the people itself and to the character and to the time. And the characters were in that, you know, the characters have been in the same time period for 10 years, you know, so I think. Yes, Madeline.
I have a question from online.
Yeah.
How do the multiple points of view led into the plot? How visible was it to use multiple points of view?
Right. Well, the question's about multiple points of view, and in my previous novels, I really haven't done much of that. But in this novel, it's from several points of view. And I think it's sort of what we were talking about earlier about exploring about family and the complexity of it. And me want to explore that a bit more in this book, seeing what's going on from various family members. I think that's. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
So much. My question is about the event, the killing tree.
Yeah, the killing tree. That's a good thought.
Especially because of Helene.
Yes.
And a lot of the damage and death and all
Yeah.
that. How do you take care of your readers, especially locally, around that similar event?
Well, it doesn't, as much as it changes everything, the event itself is not nearly as big. It just isn't as nearly as big. There's one death, you know. But that's a good question. I thought about that when I was writing Innocent, especially, yeah. But no. It's a good question. Yes, Liam.
So, talking about multiple points of view and talking about their characters, one thing I noticed after reading the book was that this is a story that is told through multiple points of view, but one point of view we don't get a sense. And really the whole story is about Betsy and her role in the community, and she's the one voice we don't hear. And so I'm wondering, how did you make that decision? And in these 13 years of writing, what did you learn about her that surprised you? What did she tell you?
Abigail, can you translate?
Yeah.
It's a great question.
It is a great question.
The question was, so there are these multiple points of view, lots of different family members' points of view, but the one we don't get is Betsy, victim of the killing tree. And yet she's at the heart of the book. And so the question was, how did Tommy make the decision not to include her? And what did you learn about her that maybe surprised you during the 13 years of writing about her and her community?
And yeah, and that was an interesting thing about this book, because really the second main character is dead, you know, for most of the book, is absent. And it required that I give a sense of her from everybody else who was alive, and with memories, with flashbacks, with him, and he's always thinking about her in one way or another. And there are like 8 flashbacks throughout the novel that weave in their relationship. And I think that gives you a sense of their relationship before. And as far as what I learned about her, I don't know. I'm just not sure. But yeah, I don't know what I learned about her. I'll let you know when I think of something. But thank you for thinking about that. And yeah, and the flashbacks are an essential part of the novel, and for me to get across their life together, because they're not together in the present anymore. So, hey.
Hey. All of your books have such a sly sense of humor. They're very, very subtle, but very, I don't know, subtle and so strong. I'm wondering, in your writing, do you tend to fight with what is a natural sense of humor? Do you try to suppress it, or do you try to tease it out? I mean, how do you're writing not funny books, but they're very.
Linda's asking how I write humor, or how it comes up. And for me, it just sort of comes up. Like if I have if it's a situation and characters or something's going on, and humor sort of goes against, it sort of gives some tension in a way, because it goes against what's happening at the moment, is one thing. I also think humor is a rest for the reader, you know, like when things are intense, to have humor sort of opens it up for the reader. Yeah, and so I I laugh a lot sometimes. I laugh. I talk to myself all the time when I'm writing, but also just in general, I talk to myself. But the humor is part of that, and I enjoy humor. I mean, I really like it when writers, even if something's hard or serious, if they also weave in that part of things. I mean, it's like life, you know, somebody's sick, somebody's going through a hard thing, but there's always humor, always, you know. That's a good question. Other questions?
Hey, Tommy.
Yeah. Hey, Tom.
You got coconut?
Yeah, I do. The question was. But I do like coconut. All right. Another question?
Characters in your books that are imbued with the personalities of people you've met that interest you?
Well, yes. That's pretty. Oh, do I ever have characters in my book that are imbued with characteristics that what was it? The people I've met. And I do that every day. Every day I write, I do that. I mean, I'm just, probably most writers, you're going around absorbing all this all the time and using a lot of it. And it's fun. You feel like you're using your life. You're using your life. And so it makes, when you see things, when you go through your day, it just brings a whole nother layer to it. Because you're sort of stepping out of it too. You're stepping out of the moment and thinking, how can I use this? Or how can I, see what I'm saying? Hey, Beth.
Hey, what are your daily writer habits?
Oh,
Do you ever have a day that you drive, do you go to the table, do you light a candle?
I wish. I tried writing candles a few times, but it doesn't really help. Now, what are my routines? My routine is just to try to write in the mornings every day, or every day that I can. But then if I can't do that, then I try to do it in the afternoon, or I don't write at night. My father was a night person. He would type all night. You could hear him downstairs typing away, but I never had that.
On a computer? You're on a computer?
Yes, I am on a computer. She asked what I write on. I write on a computer. But a lot of people write. What do you do? Do you write? She writes by hand, see? And why do you do that?
Because it's how I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you mean by that?
It's your
Okay.
I don't know what I mean by.
All right, but you all right. All right, you think, all right. Any other questions? Yes.
What's next for you?
What's next for me is I've written starts of other books, but I haven't gotten too far in any of them. So we'll see. But right for a while, it's going to be getting word out about this book, which will take me a few months at least. So, and if you work on something for 13 years, you feel like you need to do a little work to get the word out. You have to show a little something for what you've been doing all this time. Hey, Liz.
Just wondering if each next book that you write does that become your favorite book? I mean, to like keep your attention, it seems like you kind of gotta be in love with it.
Yeah.
Stop it and move to the next.
Yeah, that's a great question. Do you fall in love with every book you write? And I do. Somebody compares them to children. It's like your children. Yeah. So now I really like this book. I like all my books. Like you like all your children, but right now that's where my heart is in this. Yes.
The 13 years that you've known these people.
Yeah.
Have been monumental. And, we had George Floyd first and riots here. We had COVID for 3 years and now, all this stuff. And you chose to do, well, the woman I assume has decided she likes women better than men. That's a monumental personal choice. And you're talking about humor. Did you change, or the mood of your book change from when you were first introduced to these characters to knowing them 13 years?
I'm not sure the question, but did my mood change?
The mood of the book.
The mood of the book, did it?
Because you started.
It probably was a little lighter in the beginning, but also it's more hopeful now than it used to be. So
The book ended
yeah,
up.
yes, it is. Should we? What is it? I don't know what time it is. It's 7 o'clock.
Madeline says yes.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks all so much.